Okay. All right, we should be on YouTube now. So welcome to everyone that's joining us on the YouTube side of things. It's good to be with you all. We're just talking a little bit about prayer concerns and about vaccines and about COVID. And I guess that's always what we end up talking about these days. Inevitably, we're going to end up talking about COVID and vaccines. Let's see. My internet's getting unstable, so my apologies if I freeze and come in and out, but okay, we should be up and running now. So we are starting a new season. We've had a nice time in the book of James, and we can certainly still go back there and keep learning from James and challenging ourselves through James. But today we're shifting gears a little bit, and we're moving into a new liturgical season. And um, I really appreciate the church calendar as we kind of move through the seasons in our own lives, and each season teaches us something. We had Advent and thinking about waiting and the arrival of Christ, and as we walk through this calendar each year, Lent this time seems particularly poignant, and so we just wanted to talk about Lent a little bit. So if you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to put comments in and join the conversation that way. But we're going to have today's kind of a conversation day. So join in however you like, but it's good to see those we can see your faces too.
So what we've kind of chosen to do is, I hope you all were able to access it through the Word. This is the printable version of the link we sent out, the 40 Simple Practices for Lent. Just a quick word on Sarah Bessey, who wrote these. I was wondering if her book might be within reach real quick here, but I think it's at home. She is an author that I love and have respected and followed for quite a few years now. She wrote a book called Jesus Feminist that was pretty formative for me in my younger years before seminary. And then she has recently edited a series or a book of prayers that just came out a couple of weeks ago that she has kind of worked with other writers in her vein to kind of collect prayers of the people. It's really, really a beautiful piece. But she released this list of 40 simple practices for Lent last year. And I started using this list with some friends, and we were all kind of together following along with it. And then halfway through Lent last year, the whole world shut down and everyone was stuck at home. And our 40 simple practices for Lent kind of fell by the wayside. And so for me, this is almost like a second chance to make it all the way through this list. But also, I think it'll be great and fun for us to do this together and to chat about how we feel about these. So we have now had 4 days in Lent, and maybe I'll just read these real quickly for us so that everyone who's joining us on YouTube can hear what they are, and then we'll discuss how they went. Day 1, participate in an Ash Wednesday service in your town. Receive the imposition of ashes and consider your mortality. Read John Richardson's Blessing for the Dust. Day 2, download an app like Common Prayer or pick up a prayer book like Eastertide by Phyllis Tickle and begin to pray the daily offices at morning, midday, and evening. Do this throughout Lent. Day 3, choose something to fast for the remaining days to remind you of your dependence on God. Something like the traditional meat or alcohol, sugar or caffeine, or even social media. One year, my friend Rachel gave up sleeping in. Another friend gave up complaining. Another gave up cynicism. Another unnecessary spending. Be creative and honest about your dependencies. Look for ways to channel that energy into something generative and healing. Day 4, pray for your friends and your enemies by name. Bless them one by one. Think of the person you most struggle to love and pray for them as a beloved child of God. So let's just open up our discussion and tell us, have you tried these first 4 days? And if you have, how did they go? What was your experience like? And maybe if you want to share what you've chosen to fast from our day 3 suggestion, go ahead and share those.
And we want this to be a guilt-free, invitational kind of time. And so if you have not done any of these, you are welcome to participate in the conversation still. And it can be, so don't feel like, oh no, I didn't do the homework. It's fine. And I think one of the beauties of 40 Simple Practices for Lent, or a list like this, is that there's a lot of different things, and some may connect and some may not. And this is not, you don't have to feel like you do every single thing or you didn't do it. I think Lent is a time for us to grow in our faith, and however that looks, it may look different for each of us. So, but yeah, I like the idea of starting with the fasting, day 3. That's often what we think of for Lent, or at least I do, is giving up something for Lent. Is that, well, I don't want to throw too many questions out at once. Is that something that you all have done or in the past, or that you're doing this year? Or Larry, you look like you have something.
Well, I've tried to do different things, and a year or two ago, I mean, when I think it was Matt first suggested, maybe trying to do something on the positive side as opposed to the negative of giving up, chocolate or whatever, which seems kind of, I don't know how that helps me in my faith journey, but it's interesting, both through the Advent study and the James study, this idea of impatience and being patient kept coming up. And so it's something that I really, really struggle with. And so I decided for Lent that I was going to give up impatience or strive to be more patient. Now, Lent started Wednesday. Here's my story. On Tuesday, I went out to run some errands. And one of them was to grab a quick breakfast and then go by and deposit some money in my credit union. And they're right next to each other, or almost close to each other. So I went by and looked at the credit union. There was nobody in line. And so I said, well, I'll go grab my biscuit first. By the time I got around to the credit union, there was somebody in front of me. And they sat, and they sat, and they sat, and they sat. And then that drawer opened, and it went back. And the person said, I'll get your receipt. And no receipt, and no receipt, and no receipt. And I found myself becoming, what? Impatient. And then I said, wait a minute. You're about to go into this 40 days. What's God trying to tell you now about, how this is going to be? And so I stopped myself and actually prayed for both the person in the car in front of me and whatever they were out doing, and for the people in the bank who were, have to do all this stuff that nobody can go in right now. So they're having to do all this stuff through windows. And so I found it a way to pray. And so I said, okay, this is going to be a way for me to combine two things. When I start feeling impatient, whatever it is that's making me start to feel that way, I'm going to really try and strive to pray about it. But it was really kind of funny that I had this all set up. Oh yeah, I'm going to do great at this. I'll be fine. And then the day before, it was like, buddy, what are you doing? It was kind of like the Lord tapping me on the shoulder going, hello, I'm watching. So that's what I'm trying to do. And fortunately for me, it's been easy the last couple of days because I really haven't gone anywhere. And so, it tends to be when I'm out and about that I get those feelings. Although I'm also struggling with the fact that I can't get out and can't do anything. And those of you who know me know that I'm a doer, and now I'm not able to do stuff. And so I'm starting to feel that kind of impatient. So I've kind of been praying for guidance as to how to get out and do something. So that's my story.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, Larry. It was so kind of the Holy Spirit to provide that growth opportunity for you right off the bat. But I love how you kind of use that to sort of help you frame it for yourself, to say, oh, I'm going to not just give up impatience, I'm going to pick up praying for this person, and sort of letting that captivate you. That's really because I think so often the point of it is not giving up chocolate for the sake of giving up chocolate. It's letting that kind of wake you up in a way. It's sort of like, oh wow, look, there I am again wanting chocolate, or wanting to check my phone to see what's on Facebook, or whatever kind of thing we're giving up. It just is a tab. How many times throughout the day does it ping to our attention and it sort of flags for us? oh, one more time to make a different choice instead. Oh, so Dean Tennant just typed that exact same thing in the YouTube chat, but more eloquently than I did rambling just now. Dean said, giving something up, even something trivial, can guide one's faith journey by reminding one to turn one's thoughts to God every time they feel the need for that thing. So yes, that's what I was trying to say, Dean. So thank you. Yeah, so I like seeing it as an opportunity to sort of return to God yet again. Anybody else giving up something this year or in the past year that you want to share about?
I think for me, I'm gonna try. I'm not sure if I'm gonna succeed, but I'm gonna try to give up, or rather observe feelings, like really negative feelings, like people are out to get me. And that happens all the time. You know, if I'm in a store, or if I'm talking to customer service and, you know, they're like making me wait, I'm like, oh, and I feel so impatient. And it's a really negative feeling, and it's really something I can't control. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to observe it and then let it pass. And then if I really can, then say a little prayer, like, well, it's between them and God, you know, so there's nothing I can do about it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And I've already encountered quite a few situations, because recently I had to speak to AT&T customer service about my phone. And it was incredibly frustrating. But I decided to just say, you know what, it's okay. And I observed the feeling of negativity that, oh, they're just trying to cheat me, you know, they don't want to do this for me for whatever reason, and then just let it pass. And it, you know, it works so far, but I still have 37 days. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Elizabeth, I think what I've chosen to do this year sounds kind of similar. I'm doing it in a different way. So I chose to deactivate my Facebook account for Lent, because this is something that I have been thinking about doing for well over a year now. It's just getting rid of Facebook, because I feel like I have such a skewed perspective of friendship in my life. And I think the way that social media like allows us to observe people's lives makes it possible for us to consider people friends who, like, I know all kinds of details about the lives of some people I went to high school with, and I haven't spoken to them in 10 plus years. And that's just not a real definition of friendship in my opinion. And so being able to do this, even just the last, you know, it's been less than a week, it's been 5 days since I turned it off, and I feel better, because so much of what's showing up on Facebook and on my Facebook feed right now gives me a deep sense of judgment against other people. That, you know, somebody posts a picture of them like eating out in a restaurant, and I'm not choosing to eat in restaurants right now, and my first instinct is to be really judgmental about that. And, you know, I have a cousin who got married yesterday in Illinois, and the whole dang family showed up for this wedding, and people are sending pictures. And I had kind of hoped that I wouldn't see any of those photos because I'm not on Facebook, because my first instinct was, oh, look at that. Not a single mask in a single picture. And it just made me so angry. And I really want to just have a season of life right now where I can avoid some of those feelings. But I feel like my first instinct is to judge with anger what someone says or how they are behaving that I perhaps would not choose to behave during this particular time of life. And so I feel like it has already been and will continue to be really healthy for me to have this time in this space to instead focus on friendships that actually really matter to me, and not to keep up with people because I see what they're posting, but to keep up with people because I'm calling them and I'm texting them and I'm making direct contact.
Yeah, I've also found that actually the people that I've managed to keep in touch with over this time have been just like a smaller group of friends, and we actually managed to Zoom like once a month, you know, so we see each other, and that feels a lot more sincere, I guess. It feels a lot more nurturing to be able to do that.
Yeah, it feels more intimate that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting that how much of social media friendship is just observing or looking in or consuming even. It's sort of a consumptive version of relationship, which is not what relationships really are. Yes, so I like how, I mean, there is a similarity there between Val and Elizabeth, you know, that Elizabeth looking at in every individual moment, that sort of mindfulness, being attentive to what feelings are happening, what thoughts are happening. Um, and there's a certain control by sort of looking at them and saying, okay, I'm not going to be taken over by this feeling. I see it, and yes, it's part of me, whatever, but I'm going to let it go and I'm going to be something else. And then Val sort of also controlling, not just in the moment, but also like, what circumstances make for the most angry moments. Maybe I could change those circumstances and not have quite as many angry moments to be mindful about. So I like that. Yeah. Anybody else have anything that, or for this year or another year that you've given up that surprised you or was helpful or anything like that?
So it looks good. Decent.
Yeah, Jackie, did you have something?
I just want to remind us, because it meant a lot to me. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but Matt impressed upon us, and I like this: fast on fear, feast on faith. I just thought that made a lot of sense. Like what we're talking about, it's not so much what we give up, but I have to admit that day 4 was.
I was just going to say that this year. Okay, sorry, Jack.
That's
Sorry,
right.
I think maybe they're froze up one on top of each other.
Okay.
Yeah, Jackie, you finish what you were doing, and then we'll go to Debbie.
I was just going to say that day 4 was particularly difficult for me.
Oh, day 4, yes. Let's go to day 4 in just a second. But Debbie, did you have something you were going to say first, and then we'll go to look at day 4, because that is challenging.
I was just going to say that I similar to Larry, I gave up complaining last year for Lent. What it gave me is a sense that I thought it would be just, every other day or something. I catch myself complaining. I was complaining multiple times a day, or I was catching myself multiple times a day. So I figured out that I am a complainer. It was not a good thing. No, I mean, it was revealing. But this year I'm reaching out to people every day, either by email or by card or whatever, reaching out to someone or telephoning them. I talked to a friend yesterday I hadn't talked to in probably 30 years. She had called me on my birthday last May, and I never got back to her. And I'm like, except by sending her a Christmas card or whatever. So anyway, we had a very nice talk, and we were childhood friends. So it was very nice.
Good, I like that. It reminds me of sort of looking at the way that Sarah Bessey wrote it in this day 3. She didn't just say fast, but she said, be creative and honest about your dependencies and look for ways to channel that energy into something generative and healing. And so I like how, moving it into prayer and, or to Debbie, to reaching out to other people and using that energy for something better, something good. I really like that. But yeah, let's talk about day 4. Let's move to not just the fasting, but pray for your friends and your enemies by name. Bless them one by one. Think of the person you most struggle to love and pray for them. Jackie, did you want to say any more about why that is hard, or you want to just let that be sort of self-explanatory that it's hard?
Well, without offending anybody, it was our past administration and the leader of that administration. And I, for 4+ years, have had a lot of difficulty with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that honesty.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have felt in one way or another the anger and vitriol of politics and all of that sort of seeping into us and finding, I don't want to hate anyone. I don't want to have this much trouble loving someone. And yet I think a lot of us have had that same experience. And so, yeah, what does it mean to pray for each of those people as a beloved child of God.
Well,
Yeah, I actually,
Oh.
sorry.
that's okay.
Sorry.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the person that you're referring to, Jackie, he was also on my list, and I dreaded doing that, but I think once I figured out the prayer that I wanted to say, it felt so much better, and I was able to say it, and I actually meant it. So, yeah. So.
I really like that framing, just that figuring out what prayer you need to say and not just saying, I'm going to pray for this person, this person, this person. Okay, God, I pray for this person and be done with it. But take it the next step. Say, what am I actually praying for this person? Yeah.
What I would love is if there would in between, like for number 4, because I don't think of people, the particular person we were just talking about, as my enemy, but I sure as heck do not love him. And I would like there to be an in-between. If you want to talk about the different kinds of love, that's okay. But even today, he's up to nefarious stuff. And I don't trust where we're going as long as he's involved. We're going to have another one of these January 6th things. So what do you do? My daughter has been praying for him since the day he was elected. And I've always just gone, yeah, right. Well, that's too bad. I'm not doing that. But I understand what it says. I don't hate, but I would rather be indifferent. If there, can you pray for somebody that you're indifferent to? I mean, I just like a little in between there. So I didn't have to love him.
Isn't that the way it is? There's and not just political figures, but there's some people whose lives we hear about that I just don't care that much, and I don't hold hatred against them, but I don't want to hear about, Kanye West and Kim Kardashian West filing for divorce. Right. I just don't care. And that was the first thing that somebody sent me a text about this morning. And I'm pretty indifferent to the life that they lead, but also I still, because I am aware of what's going on with them, I have to offer some measure of love, because as a Christian and as a minister of the gospel, I feel called to be someone who does love well. And I should have sadness for people who are divorcing and for their children who will be affected by this. And that's really hard to do in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm going to get down and dirty, really honest. Nobody can hit me or anything.
That's right.
But I feel, and have been feeling for quite a while, that we're talking about somebody who is not a child of God, who is from the evil one. And I'm supposed to hate the devil. And that's what I've been dealing with. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just being down and dirty honest.
Yeah, that's a great tension, isn't it? What does it mean to hate evil and to resist evil and to passionately think that something is wrong and something else is what we should be doing instead, and then how do we also love someone at the same time? It's some mental gymnastics sometimes. It's emotional gymnastics, and that's really, really hard.
I think we want to end our time together each week during this season of Lent by reading through Psalm 90 as a group. And before we turn to that, I want to give an opportunity for anyone else to say last thoughts on how these first 4 days went.
I guess I enjoyed, I downloaded the Common Prayer app, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was providential, because after I said my prayer on, which day was to pray for your enemies, this prayer showed up, which I'll read, and it's very short. And it says, Lord, we pray you will keep us humble enough to learn from those whom we least expect to be our teachers. Help us to listen for your truth, even in the words of our enemies. And so I thought that it was like, oh, okay, thank you. You know, that made a lot of sense. So
great prayer. Wow. Yeah, because I feel like one thing that prayer does is it keeps us connected to people that, whether it's Kanye or Donald Trump or whoever it might be in our lives, that we'd rather just leave over there somewhere. Prayer does kind of make us pay attention to them, even if it's hard for us to care for them exactly in a loving way. There is something to learn as well. There's a teaching side of it, and I think we learn about ourselves in those connections, and we learn about God. And prayer does a lot of things within us, as well as not just sort of sending good vibes their direction. Prayer changes us when we pray. But yes, I think Psalm 90 we thought would be a nice way. In worship this month, we'll be looking at the Psalms every Sunday during Lent. And Psalm 90 is not one of those. And so we thought Psalm 90 would be a good one for us in Bible study to keep returning to. And perhaps it will speak differently to us different weeks. But I thought that would be a nice way to close out our time. Let's see. Can we just share that?
Well, I was going to, yeah.
Or do you have it pulled up?
Oh, well, I was going to say, I have it pulled up, but I can't share my screen at the moment.
You do that. Let's see. There you go.
Thank you. There we are. I'll just go ahead and start us out. I'll read verses 1 through 10, and then when I get to the end of verse 10, someone else just go ahead and jump in, and you can read 11 through 17 for us. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Turn us back to dust and say, turn back, you mortals. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night. You sweep them away. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning, it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening, it fades and withers. For we are consumed by your anger. By your wrath, we are overwhelmed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your countenance. For all our days pass away under your wrath. Our years come to an end like a sigh. The days of our life are 70 years, or perhaps 80 if we are strong. Even then, their span is only toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Someone else want to go ahead and jump in there?
Who considers the power of your anger? Your wrath is as great as the fear that is due you. So teach us to count our days, that we may gain a wise heart. Turn, O Lord, how long? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, so that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad as many days as you have afflicted us, and as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be manifest to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and prosper for us the work of our hands. O prosper the work of our hands.
That's Psalm 19, did he say?
90.
90.
I feel like I have to end it by saying, this is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Yes. So we'll keep returning to that and hearing how that sounds different weeks and maybe how that sounds in conversation with some of the practices we've looked at each week. So if you haven't found that link to the 40 practices, it's in the Word this past week, and we'll have it again in the Word this week. we encourage you to take a look and try some of those practices this week and see what it's like. And we'll continue discussing that next week. But I pray this season will be a time of growth and deepening and greater awareness of ourselves and noticing what's happening within us and growing closer to what God wants from us. So thank you for joining us for this time of Lent. I hope it'll be a good conversation. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to join us by Zoom next time too. We'd love to see your face. But for now, any other closing thoughts before we go to worship? All right. Well, thank you. We'll see you all in a little while, or we'll see you next week. Thanks.